I'm using the wrong. June 13th, Sustainability Commission call to order. First thing is roll call. Jared.
Present.
Paul.
Present.
Nick.
Present.
Steve.
Here.
Tim.
Present.
Brian.
Here.
And Pam.
Do you want to check if she's online? Looks like she is currently calling me. Pam, are you able to join the Zoom? Yes, I can email you the link. It will also be on the meeting agenda if you have access to the meeting agenda. Yes. No worries. All right. Thanks, Pam. All right. I'm gonna email her that link real quick, but she is here and she is listening.
All right. And approval of the agenda. Any comments or notes on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll call the agenda approved. Approval of minutes. Any comments on the
I'm
agenda?
gonna abstain because I wasn't in the last meeting, so I'm not gonna vote on last month's comments.
It's just the meeting minute.
Meeting
Meeting
minutes.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
it's just the meeting summary that's put together for everyone. So unless there's any issues with the meeting minutes, it would be just, you don't need to abstain just because you weren't here.
Okay. And you sent those out last Friday, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
They're attached to
We have to
each
do the
agenda.
approved, seconded.
No, well, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is the, if something, you say it. If not, I think I've seen the planning commission, the quickest way they do it is seeing no, seeing no comments, we'll call the meeting minutes approved by common consent.
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's great.
Okay. All right, public comment.
We did have one public comment emailed in advance. So if you haven't had a chance to read through that, you can do that after the fact.
Okay. Nobody in the room?
Looks like Pam is joining, so let's just give her a moment, make sure she didn't have anything to add. Pam, can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. We just went through the roll call, so if you could just quickly do that one more time with her online, just.
Pam
Pam?
Miller here,
All right.
Perfect. Great.
raising my hand.
All right. All right, so no public comment, obviously in the room, and then none online either. Okay, all right. So now it is the, I better get the right agenda. No, I think it's this one. Clean Energy Transformation Act, presented by PSC.
Yeah. So is the PSC individual online yet? Okay, no worries. So John from Puget Sound Energy is going to be coming to present. He is going to be joining online sometime between 6 and 6:15. And while we're waiting on him, we just wanted to go through a new kind of procedure that we're going to be doing as a commission, which is making sure that everyone has a chance to speak when we're doing discussion. And the way that we're going to try this out for starters for this meeting is if you have something to say regarding an agenda item or would like to speak in turn, you can just put up your name tag just like that. And that way David can address each commissioner and give everyone a chance to speak. I did provide PSC with the questions that you all had sent in. They have not gotten back to me yet with answers, but we're hoping to have some comprehensive answers available for everyone by the July 11th meeting. Today, they are going to be running through a presentation on their Clean Energy Transformation Act. Does anyone have anything that they wanted to bring forward before we hopefully get that started?
So it's what we didn't want from the last meeting. We said we don't want just a presentation. We want to send questions ahead of time so they can, it's a better dialogue. They're not prepared to do that.
They were given the questions ahead of time, and I did ask them to please address as many as possible in their presentation and kind of prepared them that these are the questions we'd like them to address. it's kind of just to get everyone on the same page and make sure that we're in alignment with PSC's messaging so that we can then ask informed questions based on what they have to say. Obviously, there were some pretty comprehensive questions sent in, so I don't anticipate them having an opportunity to answer all of them right away, but we'll continue to follow up and get answers, even if that answer is, we don't have an answer yet. That way we at least know.
Rose, are they only answering prepared questions, or can we ask questions from their presentation today?
We can ask questions
Okay.
from the presentation today as well.
Great.
I am hoping that they'll send us that presentation afterwards as well, so we can look through and go from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the electrification issues that you all raised at our last meeting, we talked about the EV stuff, came up Tuesday night as a part of the subsequent follow-up on the EV with council. And so we also did suggest to council that they watch this meeting once it's done as well. So I think you all will be serving a dual purpose here of both getting yourselves kind of up to speed on where PSC is going, but also helping the council get more information on that. So this worked out very well.
Did we want to move anything up, or is that too tight of a window?
I think it would be a little bit tight of a window, but I am curious, did any commissioners have a chance to watch the council meeting from Tuesday? The fleet electrification study. I know it was a quick turnaround, so no worries if not. It looks like there is another attendee online. Perfect. I anticipated we might have at least one or two public commenters, but we did not.
Do we want to read the email? Of the one public comment came over email?
He's here.
PSC's here.
Yeah. Hey, John, can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great.
How's it going? I'll just sit tight until you're ready for me.
No worries. We are ready
Just
for
so
you.
happens.
Great.
Yeah, so John, my name is Rose. I am the sustainability coordinator here at the city. We've been emailing a little bit back and forth.
Yeah.
This is our sustainability commission. We've got our deputy city manager, Rachel Bianchi, here as well. If you wanted to just give a brief introduction and then we'll let you take it away.
I'd be happy to. And then I can share my PowerPoint as well, and we can get into it. So my name is John Nanetti. I'm the Director of Customer Energy Innovation here at PSE. And in this role, I lead our teams that do our customer products and programs for distributed energy resources. So distributed solar, distributed batteries, electric vehicles, and then how we scale those things to help meet our clean energy goals going forward. But I've had lots of different roles in my 15-year history with the company. I've been in our generation group. I led our wind farm teams at one point. I've done our resource planning, load forecasting. I've also had roles in operations and safety. And most recently, before this, I was kind of in a strategic planning function for what we call PSE 2030, which is our clean energy transition. And that's what I want to talk about here is all of the different policies that shape the energy landscape in our region, and what PSE's plan is to kind of meet those policies. And then I received some questions as well that I'm going to attempt to kind of weave those answers into my presentation. And if I miss anything, feel free to ask. And if I don't know the answer, we'll try to figure out to get someone who can. So with that, are there any opening questions, Rose, or do you want me to just take it away?
I think you perfectly addressed what we're trying to get at today, so thank you.
Okay, great. All right, now I just have to figure out how to share my screen here. I don't use Zoom that much. Let's see here. Okay, share screen. One sec.
John, usually at the bottom of your screen,
Yeah,
there's a
no,
little-
I've just got a million windows open. So I just want to share the right one. Apologies
Oh.
for a long day.
Makes sense,
I'm
absolutely.
sure you all feel that too. All right, now just get into presentation mode here. Are you still seeing you're seeing
We're seeing the
without-
annotated version currently.
Okay, apologies.
You might be able to go to the slideshow tab.
Yeah. It brought it up on a different window, unfortunately. So.
Oh, yeah, he's got multiple screens, so it's presenting on another screen.
Yeah, well, let me try to share a different window here.
Are we gonna get access to this PDF?
Yeah, so I can give you PDF access to the presentation. Let me try this one more time. Apologies, thanks for hanging in with me. There we go.
You're also welcome to send it to me directly if you'd like, and I can run through the slides. Ah, perfect.
There we go. All right, made it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about PSE's clean energy transformation today. A little bit of background on PSE. I think you know us pretty well, but we're Washington's largest and oldest utility. We have about 1.5 million customers across 10 counties. And I'll just say right now, in our 150-year-old history, I'd say we're going through the most significant transformation as we meet some of really the most ambitious clean energy laws in the nation. I'll get into some of those laws and then how they shape where we're going. And then, of course, our core purpose here is to continue to deliver safe and reliable energy to our customers as we make that transition. So here's just a couple of the main policies that shape our landscape here. There's a Clean Energy Transformation Act, which passed in 2019. What that means is we have to be totally out of coal by the end of 2025. We have to be 80% clean and 100% carbon neutral by 2030 and 100% clean by 2045 in our electric supply. We have the Clean Buildings Act, which has some performance standards for buildings over 50,000 square feet. We have the Climate Commitment Act, or what we call Cap and Invest, which established kind of a cap and trade program for carbon that passed in 21. And really last year was the first year we saw started to trade allowances, and that sets essentially a price on carbon. And so especially on our natural gas, for our natural gas customers, we started to roll that price of carbon into bills, and then PSE can receive revenue for that, for those free allowances that we get, and then invest in decarbonization projects, or also buy allowances to comply with that. There's a Clean Fuel Standard. That one is passed in 2021, and it's really addresses the transportation sector, which really accounts for most of the greenhouse gases in the state. 45% are from transportation. We have new building codes that go into effect all the time. And then most recently is the decarbonization bill, HB 1589, which really I think kind of streamlines the planning processes for utilities. Helps us have a planning framework where we can the electric system and the gas system together, understand the different dependencies between those systems, and then also on the start to come up with some decarbonization targets and plans that we can go seek funding for from the commission. And I'll go into some more detail on our plans with these as well. And we also have our what we call our Beyond Net Zero aspirational commitment. And really that's in 3 different areas. So the first one is we have to decarbonize our electric supply, and that's really our plan to comply with the Clean Energy Transformation Act, or CETA. I talked about what that meant. On natural gas customer end use, we want to reduce our end use carbon emissions by 30% by 2030. It's a really difficult thing to do, and we have some. I'll talk about some ways we're thinking about gas decarbonization. One way that HB 1589 can help us out is it gives us a little bit more of a policy pathway to achieve that. And then we also want to be net zero by 2045. And then the beyond part. So we recognize that our role as an energy provider also extends to other sectors, and especially transportation. So as we are becoming essentially a fuel provider for transportation going forward, we're displacing a lot of carbon emissions from gas-powered vehicles. We're also involved with liquefied natural gas for marine transport, which is reducing the carbon intensity of shipping. And then we are also having renewable natural gas and looking into hydrogen. We're part of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub that was recently announced from the Department of Energy. And then doing everything we can to just reduce leaks on our systems and reduce methane emissions. All right, so a little bit about our fuel mix today. And so our clean energy is growing rapidly. In 2020, we were about 34% clean. And now at the end of 2022, we were 43%. By the end of 2025, we'll be 63%. And so we are almost double what we were in, we'll be almost double what we were in 2020. And the breakdown is roughly, 1/4 natural gas, 1/4 hydrogen, 1/4 coal, but that's going to go away. So next year will be the last year that we have coal from both Centralia and Colstrip in Montana. And then unspecified, but that just really means market purchases. So we have to replace all that energy, that especially on the coal side. And so that's where we're aggressively pursuing renewable energy acquisitions from both large-scale generation projects and doing everything we can to promote distributed resources in our communities.
Hey, John, are you okay with questions as you go, or do you want to wait till the end?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so my name's Nick Garson. And my day job, I work in the environmental remediation, groundwater cleanup industry. And so the question I have for you is, as we're considering Puget Sound Energy's clean energy objectives as it relates to the City of Sammamish's climate action plan, can you speak to the wind generation process? I had seen a news article a year and a half ago talking about turbines and the amount of waste that was generated, like as impellers, if that's the right term, as they're failed. Essentially, there was no way to recycle those, and there was a tremendous amount of landfill waste from the impellers. So I just want to make sure that as we're communicating this with our climate action, we understand the messaging. And I don't know if there's been a change in the industry, but I'd be interested to see if the industry, not PSE specifically, has figured out a way to reuse or repurpose the impellers or that waste, or is that a challenge?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the nacelles on top of the towers.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. That's not an area where I have a lot of expertise, but I do believe that's still a challenge with the industry is trying to figure out, how to recycle, how to repurpose those. I can tell you as our sites age, right? We were one of the first utilities to get into utility kind of wind ownership. We have 3 fairly sizable wind farms that are in the next 10 years going to reach end of life. We're figuring out how do we repower those wind farms? How do we see if we can get even more wind energy out of them as we seek to, kind of continue utilizing that resource. But the total life cycle of the waste streams from wind is not really something I can talk intelligently about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And John, is there on your hydro, I've seen where sometimes hydro isn't considered clean or green, even at the state level, because of the issues with the salmon and the dams and things like that. So does the hydro power qualify for clean as far as the state is concerned?
It does, but really like new hydro doesn't. So existing hydro does. That's why, you know, Seattle City Light and Snohomish PUD and others that have access to Bonneville Power, or they have just a higher portion of their own dams, don't have quite as far a hill to climb as PSE does for compliance with CETA. But you know, a lot of that hydro, we have a couple of dams of the upper and lower Baker River facilities, and we have some run-of-river plants. We have one out in Snoqualmie, but we also have just a lot of contracts with existing dams out on the Columbia. So that all does count towards our clean energy target.
Thank you. What's Tim? Hey, John. What's the projections on hydro going forward, being able to continue to provide power when we think about the possibility and probability of more droughts and a lot less snowpack and all that? Like what's the plan for hydro?
It's something we've started to incorporate into our modeling. We've started to bring kind of forward-looking climate change into our both our load projections and our hydro projections. I don't know that we have enough information to draw many conclusions from that, at least that I'm aware of. I can tell you from a, you know, we are looking to, you know, obviously we want to leverage that for as long as possible, but I guess I'll say I'm not totally sure how to answer your question.
I don't think there's any other questions in the
Okay.
room. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks,
Great.
John.
Yep. Okay, let's keep going. And these are just some of the acquisitions that we've made. We just recently announced our acquisition of Beaver Creek Wind Farm out in Montana. That's a wind farm that we're now broken ground on and are constructing. And we have a lot of kind of power purchase agreements. We have projects with developers that we're doing, and really our resource need is so high that we just have almost like a continuous request for proposals. And so our acquisition team is talking with different developers about what's out there. We have both an energy need for CETA compliance. We also have a capacity need, which means, you know, we have to meet peak capacity on the coldest days and on the hottest days, even when the maybe wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. But CETA requires that we do that in a clean fashion. And so that's something I'll talk a little bit later. Is one of the challenges is how do you get reliable capacity with you know, clean resources. There was a question in what was sent me about what are the challenges, and there are many, right? When we're doing something we've never done before at a scale and pace that's unprecedented, there are lots of challenges that come with that. And so the demand, as I'll talk about our load forecast projections in a little bit, the demand for electricity is expected to increase significantly due not only to policy changes, but due to electrification, due to data centers, due to just kind of electrifying as a means of decarbonization. And technologies that can replace what's kind of currently reliable, dispatchable generation that's provided by coal and natural gas, which are, you know, being gradually phased out by the Energy Transformation Act, aren't really commercially available yet. We are definitely looking at batteries. The commercially available batteries now tend to be shorter duration, 4 to 6 hours. You know, and when we see like the January event we had this year, that was several days of just no wind on the system. And during the wintertime, we know that we don't have good solar here. that's definitely a challenge. That kind of speaks to the intermittent nature of renewable resources. And then, of course, the electric grid expansion and distribution system expansion. As communities like Sammamish continue to grow, you develop economic development, you have a higher capacity need, and there's a need to expand our system. And also, honestly, I think I'll talk how we would like our customers to participate in that, because we also have an opportunity to manage those loads in a way that we've never been able to before, to harness the power of demand response, to aggregate distributed resources, and eventually use electric vehicles to help supply capacity back to the grid. So those are all exciting challenges, but you know, we know we'll get there. Our last resource plan, which is our kind of long range forecast that we use, called the Integrated Resource Plan. It has a long range load forecast, and then it has all kinds of different scenarios based on resource costs for what is the most efficient way to meet that need, including conservation and other things. But the thing I want to highlight here is it's showing just really an unprecedented need for new resources. We need about 6,700 megawatts by 2030 new. That's more than our current system peak. We need about 15 gigawatts by 2045. That's, you know, these numbers are double what the energy resources we've acquired in our company's entire history. And one of the reasons for that is as we think about our capacity need, which is our peak capacity that we have at any one time, we may need to build just a lot more wind or a lot more batteries to balance that peak capacity. And so in some ways, there's almost like potentially an overbuilding of those resources, unless we can find something that's clean and dispatchable and reliable that we can just kind of turn on to meet those peak days. But for scale, you know, 15,000 megawatts is equivalent to all of these different things over here. So 700,000 residential solar systems, 50,000 residential batteries, you know, 8 peaking plants, and what I mean, natural gas turbine that we can turn on and off. That's how most of the peak need is met today. 1,200 wind turbines. You can see the list. So it's a major challenge how we're going to meet capacity going forward and meet it with complying with CDEP.
Hey, John.
Yep.
Tim again. In two slides back when you had the pie chart, I noticed nuclear was like not there at all, basically. I think it was sub 1%.
Yeah, less than 1%.
How is PSE thinking about nuclear when
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit. You know, we're really taking a broad approach, kind of an all of the above approach to potential technologies that can help us meet this challenge. We've been working with Energy Northwest out in the Richland area to kind of understand their plans for small modular reactors out there. And we've even made kind of early stage investment in, you know, with them, seed some early stage development of small modular reactors out there. These are not, you know, funds that we're requesting recovery for customers, from customers or anything like that. But at this point, we just, you know, I think we recognize potential. It has a lot of value from an energy and a capacity standpoint. And so I think we're open to, you know, wanting to see it come to the region if it's something that's feasible here. And Energy Northwest, you know, they run the Columbia Generating Station out there, so they have lots and lots of experience doing that safely.
Any other questions?
Yeah, right now, super small. How much time do I have, Rose? Because I want to make sure that I'm not going too slow.
Yeah, we've got you slotted till 6:45, but this is
Okay.
definitely a really important topic to the
Okay.
commission. So if we go over a little bit, I think that's okay.
Okay, and I can speed up a little bit too here.
Yeah, we want to make sure we have time for questions as well. So
Perfect.
no need to like rush to an extreme amount.
Yeah, this is our load forecast, and so we can see that it's going up pretty significantly over the next 20 years, but most of that growth is due to electric vehicles, which is obviously a huge source of load growth for us. And our peak, I don't show it here, but our peak system impact, this is our kind of average energy impact, but our peak, which is our kind of instantaneous, is also increasing by about 30% over the next 20 years. And so that's those are really, pretty big increases. But we'll talk about ways that we can mitigate those and manage load as well. And this is sort of the regional outlook put together by PNUC, which is the Pacific Northwest Utilities Conference Committee. They're showing kind of similar. So we're not alone in this. The regional load is growing as well, both in an annual energy and a summer and winter peak loads. And it's sort of that similar, 30% growth. I talked about this, so I won't spend too much time here, but there's definitely this need for on-demand clean energy resources that can be turned on and dispatched reliably that replace the carbon emitting resources.
Hey, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on that regard, just again, a question about messaging. My experience on another project was we were able to make statements that we used 94% renewable energy on a particular project because during periods where it wasn't sunny, it wasn't windy, the energy utility had to offset with coal power. And so we're not making statements here that PSE is heading to 100% renewable alternative energy. Are we? Will there always be some small percentage that'll have to be supplemented by carbon sources?
Well, the law says we have to achieve it by 2045. So that is where we're planning to go. By 2030, we'll be at 80% clean and 100% carbon neutral. There was a question, well, how are you going to get to carbon neutral? We'll be probably buying renewable energy credits to offset the amount of fossil resources that we do use. I don't know that there will always be a need for those fossil resources because there are some really exciting technologies coming online. Specific duration batteries, which is an investment that we're making to pilot. Those batteries can discharge over a period of 72 hours. Actually 100 hours, my apologies, and they mimic the characteristics of this right here, which is a gas peaker. And so those technologies are out there, and so I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic that we will find solutions in that 20-year time horizon. And this is kind of this all of the above strategy that I mentioned. We recognize the technologies are not here right now, so we have to do everything we can to kind of foster the development of some of these things. I talked about supporting the early project development for advanced small modular reactor facility. We're partnering with Form Energy on a 10 megawatt, 100-hour iron air long duration battery project. This is what I just mentioned. This is a really interesting technology. It's batteries that can discharge over 100 hours. And so that would fill a really big gap that would offset the need to build a lot of other kind of batteries or a lot of other kinds of resources if this technology comes to fruition and we can build it. And then we're part of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. That's another way of generating clean dispatchable capacity is to use hydrogen. It's very early stage, but that's something that we're tracking closely and participating in as well. On the grid side, so there's certainly a need to bring additional transmission, to build additional transmission, to bring those renewable resources that are located east of the Cascade Mountains back to our service territory, as well as kind of expand and modernize our own distribution infrastructure. There was a question about Sammamish specifically, and if you all want to go into detail about this, a different meeting, we could get somebody from system planning in here to talk to you. But essentially, the answers I got from them were right now, Sammamish is served by 4 substations with a summer peak of about 83 MVA, which is sort of similar to megawatt. And there's a total available capacity at those substations of 103, but our 20-year load forecast is projecting a increase to over 133. So that's a 30 MVA increase over the current capacity, which will drive some system capacity needs. And so there have been some investment needs identified at 2 of the substations. A high level cost for those is between 40 and 65 million, but that's all subject to change as technology matures, as we come up with different, load management strategies. But I guess the takeaway here is, yeah, there will be, we're projecting there will be additional need to build out infrastructure within Sammamish. And we could have some folks come in and talk to you in a lot more detail about that if that's something you'd like going forward.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Because I think that's going to be of interest to some people watching. It's 40 to 55 million to get to the 130?
Yes.
Okay.
Within that 20-year time horizon.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what did you say your current load is right now?
Current load is about 83 MVA. And the total available capacity is 103. So there's about 20 MVA of growth available, but over that 20 years, we're expecting about 50 MVA of growth to get to that kind of 133. But go ahead.
Does that include, so if Sammamish hits their 2030 goal for electrification and moving and minimizing gas usage over to electric, or is that projected based on normal year-over-year growth rate?
It's comes out of our load forecast team, and they take into account the economic growth projections, but also the policy. So they take into account the fact that after 2030 here there won't be internal combustion cars sold anymore. They forecast kind of turnover of appliances and assumptions around electrification as well. I'll have to find out. I don't know specifically if they take into account sustainability plans or but I can try to find that answer for you. But it's they do a pretty good job taking into account all different data types, and really that's not surprisingly it's a lot of the policy environment right now that drives that load increase.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I want to talk just a little bit about our customers, because this is a really key area here. We're doing a lot of things to help enable our customers to provide to play a role in our in the clean energy future. We're doing lots of distributed energy resources through community solar, and we see a lot of net metered solar customers. We have products for multifamily homes, for commercial spaces. And so we're doing everything we can to incentivize distributed solar. We have specific targets that we have to meet there. We also have demand response programs. So we've launched what's called a virtual power plant. So we have, aggregated capacity from smart thermostats from managed charging with electric vehicles. And we continue to just roll out more and more programs associated with this. We're going to have residential battery programs here shortly, commercial battery programs. We also do acquisitions for distributed resources. And all of those things we roll into this virtual power plant. We were able to get over 30 megawatts of demand response during some of these peak events over the winter time. We had 7 different events. And our customers also get incentivized. So they're able to get incentive payments and for annually enrolling and also for saving energy when you need it. And then also transportation electrification is a huge part of this. We have lots of programs on that. All of this, there's a lot of detail in the deck here about our customer programs. I can kind of leave that with you, but I do want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. This is more my area, so I'm really excited about where we're going with this. When you think about having a car in most driveways that can power a home for 3 days, that's really exciting because there's all kinds of resiliency benefits that can come with that. But there's also what we like to call kind of energy orchestration, which is where this is going. So think about all of the latent capacity that customers have in their homes and where the technology market's going. So we have thermostats that are connected. We have appliances that are connected. We have more and more home solar systems and paired with batteries in our service territory. And then we also have electric vehicles. And so, we can envision a scenario where, customers are exchanging energy in a bi-directional fashion with the utility. It's not just a one-way relationship anymore. Customers are being incentivized to put energy back on the grid, and they're being compensated for it because doing that is cheaper than building additional transmission lines or building additional substations or building additional power plants. These technologies are coming. We have a lot of exciting technology demonstrations coming, especially in the electric vehicle space. And we're really excited about this opportunity to really orchestrate or conduct the distribution system in a way that really optimizes the assets that we have, avoids additional infrastructure build, and then engages our customers, gives them more flexibility and control along the way. I have a lot of materials on that, but I think in the interest of time, I'll just kind of open it up for questions, recognizing, hey, I've got about 2 minutes left.
So John, just real quick, I want to make sure everybody here knows what the picture on the left is. It's Pine Lake Middle School here in Sammamish.
Good.
So-
Yeah. We have lots of community solar projects now. And so, like I said, I will PDF this deck and leave it with you. But this
John.
space is incredibly exciting. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, I'm glad this is your area because one of the challenges I've always heard and read about solar is if you overlaid the worst place in the United States to install solar, the Pacific Northwest would probably be one of the toughest places to get not only a return on your investment, but just days of sunlight or hours of sunlight in a given year. Is the technology advancing to a point where that is becoming less of an issue?
I think I think about it like the system peaks are changing from winter to summer. We're still winter peaking, but in summertime, this is an amazing place for solar. And so as more people put solar on their houses, as we get more air conditioning load, as we just get higher and higher loads in the summertime, like we're spending, as much time now, worrying is the wrong word, but we see summertime peak events, which affect us almost as much as wintertime events now. And so solar here in the summertime has a really high capacity value, and it's really valuable for for the utility. I think, you know, solar is obviously, you know, continues to be incentivized, but I think it's really exciting to see what Department of Commerce is doing with the federal funds headed their way with solar. So, and I think there's also a tension between clean energy and affordability as well. And so these technologies, these investments, they come at a cost. And so the value proposition for customers having their own resources gets better and better as utility rates have climbed due to these costs. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
I got a question for John, but also for Rose. So, you know, we've talked about in prior meetings that one of the biggest challenges and opportunities for us to successfully implement our climate action plan is there's not a lot of industry in Sammamish, right? So it's about residential engagement. And so what John's talking about, is this something that, you know, we talked about maybe the city engagement with homeowners associations, like are solar panels even allowed on residences and homeowner associations? Could this information package be rolled out to HOAs in discussion, or information put on the new website we're working on? I don't know if you had a chance to digest all this stuff, Rose, but I'm thinking about how do we get the word out that we're all customers, and how can the residents of Sammamish help with some of these ideas for energy conservation?
Yeah, I think those are great points, Nick. You know, PSC and the city both can come at this from different kind of sides. So you have PSC communicating with their companies, pushing out information on these programs, promoting community solar and solar panel rebates, and such like that. And then you also have from the city side. So I think, you know, we can encourage, we can educate, but ultimately, like you said, it is up to different regulations with the HOAs and making sure that we're doing as much as we can. So it's something I'm continuing to think about, haven't had a chance to do a lot with yet, but getting this information from PSC and working with them in partnership is how we're going to get there.
Yeah, maybe the newsletter too might be a good way to convey some of this.
Yeah, we're expanding our programs all the time, and I think that is important, and we'd be happy to engage however you feel like would be helpful to help get that word out, because it's a big part of this is activating our customers and helping to just manage energy better across our system.
And to kind of go off that, and John, Jared, essentially, I guess I'm kind of curious, given that a lot of the stuff that you've mentioned takes, you know, very active engagement potentially from customers, which is, you know, there's a fundamental difference, I think, between that and a more passive engagement, which people are kind of used to. You know, that might take some, I guess, change management to a certain degree, and like better understanding. We use the term here like hearts and minds, but, you know, better understanding, you know, how to emotionally, in a sense, connect to customers. So I was curious if you could speak a little bit to like the change management that you're thinking about, like, you know, what is sort of the touch points, which teams of yours would touch the communities, and what parts of the communities, you know, are directly connected to them, basically.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that you know, we certainly have community engagement teams, but I think I'd almost want to hear from you all about where you think the most effective way to engage is, because every city is a little bit different in as far as what they want. Some cities want us to come to farmers markets and have a booth and talk to people, and other cities, you know, want printed materials. I don't know off the top of my head exactly how we're engaging with you right now. I don't believe Brandon is on this call. I'm sure he would be able to rattle it off, our municipal liaison manager, Brandon Layers. But I think that's are largely a partnership, and we can decide together what you think is the right way to do that for your community.
I don't think we have any other questions in the room at this time. John, did you have any other slides that you wanted to go through really quick?
I talked a little bit about our demand response, but I'll just say, you know, we're really trying to scale the customer-sided resources. I think it's a huge opportunity, especially when you start to roll in our vehicle-to-grid technologies in the future, vehicle-to-home technologies. You know, you see the ads for, you know, the Ford Lightning that can power the house for several days. You know, there's just tremendous benefits to having mobile batteries throughout the system, and those are the demonstrations that we're looking to prove out. Let me see if I have anything else here. There's certainly a lot of stuff. I'll just say, I'll just touch on affordability and equity. Those are core tenets for this transformation as well. We recognize that, you know, with these investments come additional costs. We have lots of different programs for bill assistance for people in the community who need that. We just rolled out our bill discount rate, which helps customers save up to 45% on their bill each month. And so I think we're trying to attack this problem from all angles and making sure that people don't get left behind along the way.
So John, is clean energy a premium? Or is it something that PSE is looking to essentially make cost efficient or cost neutral compared to, you know, prior carbon intensive sources?
Yeah, I'll say that new resources maybe aren't at a premium, but replacing existing resources with new resources, that comes at building out the transmission comes at a major cost. And then as we electrify electric vehicle loads, I mean, that's going to be, you know, a third of our load going forward is EVs. That's going to require system upgrades. That comes at a cost. You know, but from a customer standpoint, you know, energy share of wallet, I hope, meaning that the dollars that customers spend across the board, like right now, you fill up your car at a gas station and maybe it costs $75. You know, electricity prices are much cheaper. I have an electric vehicle and it cost me $350 to drive for an entire year. That was my fuel cost. And so, but I'll just say that those infrastructure investments do come at a cost. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John. We really appreciate you coming out tonight. Want to give one last call for any outstanding questions. Commissioners, if you have follow-ups, feel free to email them to me as usual for the Q&A. And we'll see about getting some of those questions written down that maybe weren't addressed today. John, we really appreciate. Oh,
This isn't a question. Yeah, I'm sorry to just jump in here, but as most of you know, I'm on the board of my HOA, and I would have to look at the covenants as to whether there are any restrictions to install solar panels. I just don't know, but I think that that's going to be further discussions as we continue down this path.
And if you would like, if this group would like to have a more in-depth conversation about customer programs, I would be more than happy to have someone from my team, or I could come back and talk more specifically about that, as well as the system planning side. So if you want to learn more about system growth in your community, plans to planned investments in your community on the system side, I could get somebody from that team to come as well.
Thanks, John. I'll follow up with you for that contact information at a future date.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Rose, I'll send you the deck.
Thank you very much. Jared,
All right,
anything
take
else?
care.
Or you good?
Oh, I was just
Okay,
making.
perfect. All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye.
Wanted to make sure. Yeah, no worries. All right, nope, that's it.
All right, this is only 10 minutes over.
Too bad.
Building and energy codes.
Ah. All right, so tonight we have joining us Joey Tedder from the Buildings Department. Joey has been doing some really in-depth research on the building and energy codes that are the 2021 edition that has been implemented in the last year. And he'll be giving us some great background on what that means for electrification and residential energy consumption in Sammamish. Joey, take it away. Did you want me to
Are
pull
you
up the
driving
slide
the
deck
deck?
for you?
Could you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, my name's Joey Tedder. I've been a building inspector in Washington for over 19 years. I was a builder before. I'm currently ICC certified or International Code Council certified as a residential and commercial building inspector, plans examiner, and building official. So I've been in this industry for a while. I still feel like I'm kind of new at it every day because the codes change so much from year to year. What I've found is that we're not getting a whole lot of support from the state on outreach. So when I go to trainings, there's actually typically more confusion about what's happening with the energy code than we're getting information from. So what I did is I created a rather lengthy presentation that I plan to send out to other building departments, other cities, Washington Association of Building Officials, to help explain the changes in the code a little bit better so we can get better compliance throughout the state rather than just in Sammamish. Our builders have been very responsive and have been very interested in becoming excellent partners and helping us with our with our outreach to other cities and to design professionals. Anyway, so this is a pared down version. So the purpose to understand what the State Building Code Council has mandated to reduce energy consumption, increase energy efficiency in new construction, additions, and remodels. So these codes, they have a direct impact on the use of fossil fuels being used. It's not just combustion for heating or cooking. The electricity from the last presentation, you can see that our electricity, when we hit peak demands, we're using a considerable amount of fossil fuels to produce that extra electricity. So the real way to reduce the use of those fossil fuels is through energy efficiencies. And that's what the residential energy code is doing, is to help reduce the overall energy consumption, therefore reducing carbon emissions, use of fossil fuels. What we're going to be looking at today is what is the Washington State Building Code Council, energy credits and energy credit options, mandatory requirements of energy code and emissions reductions, and implications for sustainability commission. So the Washington State Building Code Council was created to advise the legislature on building code issues and develop the building codes used in Washington State. The SBCC amends the national code models developed by the International Code Council and recommends adoption to the state legislature. So the Washington State Building or Washington State Energy Code is essentially a subset of the building code. These codes help ensure buildings and facilities are constructed in the state and are safe and healthy for building occupants, accessible to persons with disabilities, the elderly, and energy efficient. Codes are updated approximately every 3 years. We've been having some problems over the last few years, and the code cycles have been extended out. So right now we are currently just adopted the 2021 code cycle, even though the model codes for 2024 have been released and the state's been working on them to for amendments and adoption in the future. So energy credits. Energy credits are mandatory additional efficiency requirements that you can mix and match to make up the number needed given the size of the heated space being constructed. So if you're, as you can see from the table there, an addition between 150 square feet to 500 square feet would only require 2 credits, where a large dwelling over 5,000 square feet would need 9 credits. So energy equalization credits. These credits reduce the number of energy credits you're required to select based on the preferred heating options. So as you see, for combustion heating using an 80% furnace, gas furnace, you wouldn't get any additional credits. But for some of the highest efficiency heat pumps, you can get up to 3 additional credits.
So quick question, is this for new construction, or this be also include like renovation of the residential structure?
So a remodel, there are some mandatory upgrades that have to be made. So when you open up an exterior wall cavity that doesn't have insulation or is under insulated, it would have to be upgraded to whatever you could fit in using fiberglass batt insulation. So with a 2x4 wall, you would have to upgrade to R15, which is the highest density fiberglass insulation available. And a 2x6 wall, you would have to comply with the current code, which is R21. R values are how much resistance to heat transmission through a material is. And the higher the R value, the better the insulation. And then with windows, you have a U value. And the U value is how much energy is able to be transmitted through a material. And the lower the U value, the more efficient it is.
And I just went back to this slide so you could see. So it is remodels and it's also additions. And these are the different sizes.
Yeah, so an addition up to 150 square feet is exempt from energy credit requirements. So it doesn't have to have those additional energy efficiencies. You just have to comply with the base code. So the energy credit options. So say you're building a 5,000 square foot mansion or 11,000 square feet, or however you want to build, you would need 9 credits. Those credits could be made up from any of the 7 options or 7 option groups. So number 1 credits are efficient building envelope improvements. So these are better U value windows. It's more insulation than attic. It's continuous exterior insulation that's thicker than what's being mandated now. Number 2 credits are air leakage control and efficient ventilation improvements. So what this does is how you test for this is you use a blower door, and what happens is you suck air out of your house, and you're measuring how much air is actually being sucked out of your house once it's been dropped down to negative 50 pascals, which is an atmospheric measurement. We take that, we use an equation, and we determine how many volumes of air in the house are being exchanged every hour. So air changes per hour is the term. So right now, we've just had a reduction from the 2018 code to the 2021, that standard was 5 air changes per hour. Now it's 4 air changes per hour, which is significant. And then our number 2 credits would reduce that even further. So the number 2.1 credit would be dropping that to 3 air changes per hour. In addition to that, you would need to make up your whole house ventilation using a heat recovery ventilator. And what those do is they recover the heat that's being lost from your exhausted air and introducing it to the new incoming fresh air. And then there's the ERV, which is called an energy recovery ventilator. And it does the same thing, but like a heat pump, it works both ways. If you're trying to keep your house cool, it'll dissipate the heat from the outdoors, back outdoors, and keep your house cool. So number 3 credits are high efficiency HVAC equipment. So this could be anything from a 95% efficiency furnace to some emerging technologies that honestly aren't even on the market yet. We just had one company introduce an air to water heat pump. So it takes the heat from the air, puts it into water so you can distribute it through your house through a hydronic system or fan coil units. And otherwise, central heat pump or multi-zone heat pump, like a multi-distributed mini split system. Number 4 credit, we used to have 2 credits for that. One was for deeply buried insulation. So you would have to put all of your ductwork, say in your attic, you would have to put it underneath at least R19 insulation, where before you could have your ductwork above the insulation. Now you can't have any ductwork outside of the building thermal envelope. So outside of your insulated space to attain that credit. Number 5 credit is efficient water heating. This is where we don't even have technologies. There are no commercially viable options in some cases. There are 2 credits that in both the heating and the water heating that are gas-fired heat pump water heaters. And these are experimental. There have been some studies. I could forward some studies to Rose, but they basically work like an RV refrigerator that runs on propane through the ammonia water vapor cycle. And the efficiencies, so your typical highest efficiency gas furnace is 98%. These heat pumps, these experimental heat pumps that aren't commercially available yet, they can be up to 140% efficient by drawing heat from outside using that same ammonia water vapor that's a refrigeration cycle. So it reduces fuel consumption drastically. Let's see, and renewable energy. So we've changed the credits to where now we can get more of your energy efficiency credits through wind or solar. And then the number 7 is an efficient appliance package. And the big thing on this is the adoption of the ductless dryer. One of your biggest losses of heat in your house is doing laundry. You're taking air from inside your house, you're heating it, you're running it through your dryer to with your wet clothes to absorb moisture, and then you're taking that and throwing it out the house. You're basically pumping all of your warm air outside through your clothes dryer.
So do any of these technologies address a more closed loop system where that hot air could actually be reused within a house?
So the ductless clothes dryer actually works more like a dehumidifier. So it heats the air that's in the dryer and then runs it through a condenser and then back into the dryer again. So you're not actually taking any air out of your house and exhausting it outside. The water is just being condensed inside the dryer and pumped into your washing machine drain.
Where does that stand now?
The heat pump water or
Availability.
the ductless clothes dryers, they are available right now. We see them going into maybe 10% of new homes. So it's a really good option. The feedback I've gotten so far from customers is it takes a little bit longer for towels. You do have to be more on top of the lint, or they don't work very well, and they can actually clog up the dryer. Other than that, for some of these really tight homes, we have a customer here just built his finished his house last year. He's given me some really good feedback. He's a distributor for Mitsubishi and their heat pump system, their heat pump program. And he's been a great resource. I got a lot of really good information from him. But,
So are these ductless dryers, are they available across most common brands or specific ones?
There's a few brands. There's several ductless dryers on the market. This credit actually requires an efficiency of 5.3 to qualify for the credit. So it's one of the higher efficiencies. I think there's only 3 or 4 on the market. But lesser efficiency ones are available by several of the big brands.
Are these weighted differently, or do you get, so if I need nine credits, do I just keep going down the list until I hit my 9, or are some of these weighted differently than others to get those credits?
Yeah, so say like credit 1.3. It's 1.3 is a credit that you have to have U.28 windows reduced from U.30. You have to have R38 insulation underneath your floor, or up from R30, or a fully insulated slab, whereas you would only have to insulate the perimeter. So that would give you half a credit.
Okay.
And so when you go to credit 1.4, you would be adding additional attic insulation, and you'd be going additional attic insulation. You'd be going with triple pane windows down to I believe U value of 0.13, and you would be adding 2 to 3 inches of continuous exterior insulation underneath your siding.
Is there a way to calculate implementation of these credits to energy efficiency? Let's say if a homeowner was interested, I want to improve my energy efficiency by 90%. Is there a way you can figure that out by implementing, some of these more efficient appliances or?
So that's actually, so your UA alternative is actually part of a way to, it doesn't address appliances, but your building thermal envelope. So the UA alternative is a second way of finding a prescriptive compliance path. So your prescriptive compliance path is charted out for you. So you have to have so much insulation in the walls, so much insulation in the floor, so much insulation on in the attic. You have to have U value windows of a certain amount. That's prescriptive. But with the UA alternative, so UA is short for U value analysis. It's made up of 2 equations, one calculating a target UA and the other's a proposed UA. In order to use this compliance path, the proposed must not use more energy than the target UA. So with that, you can actually get a percentage to change. So some of the or all of the number one energy credits, the efficient building envelope, those all except for 1 and 2, which are prescriptive. They're reducing the U value of windows. All the rest of them have a percentage of UA that would take the place of what the prescriptive would be.
Okay, it's where I was going with my question was, let's say for a remodel, at least my experience on implementing sustainability projects is there are ways to do it to actually save money, right? You're spending costs up front, but then there's a longer term return on your investment, whether it's a lower energy bill or heating bill or a water bill. And so I don't know if we're there yet as an industry, but that would be important to a homeowner to understand. If I'm going to go down this path on a remodel, am I going to be able to realize any savings down the road?
So most of our remodels, the vast majority of our remodels, people are upgrading. So they're all a kitchen remodel. They're going to buy all new appliances, and we're looking at all new Energy Star appliances.
Okay.
With a bathroom remodel, they're looking at low flow toilets. They're looking at
showers probably.
The showers are going to be the lower flow, but it's going to have a higher comfort value. And they're going to change the heating in the bathroom as well. So they'll go with a high efficiency. It sounds kind of strange, but some of the newer electrical heated tile is a lot more efficient than the older stuff. So the Schluter system it heats a 100 square foot bathroom using less than 50 watts of power.
Can I add something here? So I think one of the challenges that we have is intercepting the customer early enough when they're going through this thought process to help them understand where to get the most efficiency for the money they want to spend.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they're architects. These days they're good, and I'm not bashing architects,
right,
but they're not the best qualified to help them navigate through this very complex world of all these things. For remodels, the other one for new construction is that when they fill out that worksheet, the energy worksheet, there's a whole host of assumptions that go into that about your contractor's ability to build it, the steps you're taking in building it. And we sometimes run into a problem where it's been built by a contractor that wasn't really aware of what they were supposed to be doing with blocking and sealing and doing all these things. They can't pass the blower test. They bought the wrong windows to put them in. They did all these things, and now they have to redo the worksheet, and they're finding out that it's going to cost them a lot of money. Or there's something that they're depending on in the worksheet as a piece of technology that is kind of available, but really, we're kind of on the cutting edge of this stuff. Other parts of the country are still using old generations of technology, so the manufacturers haven't retooled their line to build this stuff yet. So there is some of it out there, and there's a few lines out there, but it's not like broadly available, and there's a shortage. So you might have something spec'd out, but you might not be able to get it until 6 months after you need it. So they'll put something else in, and then they'll have to redo the worksheet. So this is the challenge, is that there's all these things that go into this, and unless you've got an architect that's really savvy on these worksheets, and a contractor that knows what they're doing, and subs that have actually proven that they can build it to that spec, you're constantly spinning in this worksheet environment where you're like, oh, didn't pass the blower test. I got to do whole house insulation. I'll put siding on. Well, what do I do, right? So our inspectors are really key in that and trying to help remind people of this. I get calls from people who are just upset because they're like, well, I didn't know this. my builder didn't tell me this. It's gonna cost me, $40,000 more. I'm already over budget. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, I don't know, it's the state's mandated code. We can't give exceptions.
When you get an estimate from a contractor, none of this is transparent, right? And it's a great point.
So sorry to interrupt, you're doing a wonderful job. I just wanted to pass that off because I feel like that is an opportunity for the city to try to find a way to help raise awareness and get people connected with the right type of professional early on.
Which is why Joey putting together, this is a very truncated version of, I think it was like 100+ slides going into all of the detail that,
It was 63.
okay, yeah. 63, sorry,
And that's-
felt like 100.
That's trying to keep it as about as short as I can. It should take about 3 hours to present to someone, in 63 slides. So, I'm not the kind of person who likes to just read the slide. Those people that do that just bug me because they're not really teaching you anything more than what we could just receive a PDF. You really need to explain things. So building on what David was saying is that during our initial plan review for 20 to 30% of our custom homes in the city, most of our big builders, Murray Franklin,
Toll Brothers. American Classic.
Yeah, American Classic is gone.
Oh, they're gone.
Yeah.
Oh.
But our big builders here, they've been very good with communication, and they plan for these changes, and ask us questions. And some of these guys even give me calls when they're not working in the city, saying, "Hey, what are we going to do about these code changes?" I'm one of the gurus. I don't even know how I got that status, but the key thing here is 20 to 30% of our custom builders, their architects are going through and picking out one credit from selection from option one credit from 2, one credit from 3, one credit from 4, just going down, checking them at random. And all of these options are supposed to show on the plans, and they have no idea what they're checking and what it means. Like I said, the outreach from the state has been horrible. So that's why I spent the time. That's why I spent the resources to put together a presentation, not just for our building inspectors, not just our building plans examiners, but to help our neighbors, because everyone's struggling. When I was at my last residential code class this last March, I thought that there was probably this close to having a fist fight between the presenter and a couple of inspectors. So I mean, it was very contentious.
Is that training required for contractors?
No.
Or is it optional? Okay.
So contractors in the state, in order to become a contractor, you have to have a general contractor. I believe it's a $16,000 bond, insurance, and $124 license fee. So I've known people that didn't even own a saw that became general contractors.
I saw that a lot during COVID.
Yeah.
People just showing up, because supply and demand was out of whack.
And in California, I've helped people with their exams to become contractors there, and that's almost as big of a joke as what we've got here with nothing. So the industry really helps regulate itself. I wish that we had better help from our legislature on not allowing people with failed contracting businesses to just open up another business the next day. But that's really not part of this discussion. I've got lots of gripes. I see people getting in really bad positions all the time, and my heart really goes out to them. I try to give them places to go to find resources, but I really don't have the power to really help people. I've had a few customers in other cities where they've actually gotten Jesse Jones from the news station involved, and had some contractors come in and help them. So the wife with a disabled vet down in Faircrest, some retired people in Ruston. Just my job is to try to help people, and I'm limited to what I can do, but I do what I can when I can. So, sealing a home from air leakage. In this slide, you can see how complicated this task is. There are many different places air leakage occurs in a typical home. This just represents the most common in all homes. To locate these leaks, a builder can hire an AeroSeal company to pressurize the home right after the drywall is installed, but prior to paint, and release a sticky material into the air that squeezes into the leaks and builds up to stop the leak. The other method is to have the blower door test company leave the house under test and hunt down the leaks one by one and fill leaks with leaks as they're found with caulking. The AeroSeal is some builders are starting to use it to try to pass these blower door tests, the air leakage tests, and it is really, really expensive. Some of these AeroSeal companies are charging as much as $250 per square foot of floor area. That's more than the construction costs on some houses. So moving right along, continuous exterior continuous insulation. This slide shows the difference. Just a small amount of continuous insulation over the top of the wall sheathing stops the wood framing from transmitting heat through the wall. The two pictures in the bottom right are taken with a thermal imaging camera. Note that you can clearly see where all of the studs are located in the house without continuous interior insulation. And what we're looking at here, the upper picture, where you can see all the studs, that's just it's a 2x4 wall with R13 insulation. It's what we used to have here before the Northwest Energy Code back in the 90s. But the one below it is R13 with half-inch rigid. Half-inch rigid isn't even what we're mandating now. It makes a huge difference. The drywall picks up the heat on the inside, transfers it to the studs that pass through to the exterior sheathing, and then that dissipates the heat to the outside. And that's what it's thermal bridging.
So Joey, this is one way to get that UA alternative, correct?
So the UA alternative, some builders, so the state is actually pushing for some type of calculated resistance. So they're trying to push you into a UA alternative, or where you calculate the resistance versus do prescriptive, like the mandatory continuous exterior insulation. Or there's two other options, which is total building performance, which is kind of a problem because there's no software that's been approved to calculate total building performance under the 2021 code. The other is a passive house standard, which is really hard to get in our climate because we're both cold and wet. And it sucks a lot of heat out of homes. It's really hard to use less than 2,000 watts of power to heat an entire dwelling unit. But through calculated resistance, with the UA alternative, you can mix and match and get a little bit better insulation in one area to make up in another area that helps give builders options. So foam board may not be available, because we're going into a new code cycle where prescriptively you have to have it. But with the UA alternative, they could add additional insulation in the attic. They can get better windows and not need the continuous exterior insulation, and still not use any more energy than if they had used exterior insulation. So, all right.
And Joey, just to be mindful of time, if we could move
Yep.
through these last couple slides, thank you.
Yep, be quick, okay? Testing submittal requirements, the blower door test. So over the years, we've been requiring building air leakage tests, duct leakage tests, and now whole house ventilation flow tests. We found there are too many people conducting the tests and not knowing how, and almost as many people falsifying the tests outright. We now require tests to be proven with time and location stamp photos of the results on equipment during the tests. In the last year, I've personally proven 2 cases of falsified results in the course of inspections just here in Sammamish. One was from a reputable company, and it was the owner's son that came out and did the test and falsified the reports with photographs. The calculation used didn't line up with the results on the equipment. So the owner of the company took action and made it right, but and the other one was a homeowner. He just got a copy of the form and he just put in numbers at random seemingly to try to get his number without ever doing the test. Let's see. The plan submittal requirements. The plans need to show one of the 3 compliance paths. We talked about that a little bit. The prescriptive compliance, which also includes the UA alternative, the total building performance, using engineering energy modeling software, and then the passive building standard where advanced construction methods are used. Insulation values are increased through the building to virtually eliminate heat losses. So options 2 and 3 negate the need for energy efficiency credits. So those are whole options, but like I said, those aren't options I've ever seen in Washington.
Are we trading energy efficiency for air quality? Is there data that shows the foam and other material, do they create indoor air hazards?
So the continuous exterior insulation is on the outside of your air barrier. So it wouldn't make any difference to
indoor air. Okay.
It wouldn't change anything for your indoor air. So this is another part right here. This is continuing into the future is what this is. It's our energy code compliance certificate. If you own a house that was built since 2009, you should have one of these certificates or something similar to it next to your electrical panel. Do not tear that off. Do not paint over it. We need that for when you replace your equipment, your water heater, your furnace. That's how we can tell what was supposed to be in there and how efficient it was supposed to be. Aside from that, it's also going to tell you what your blower door test was, your insulation values, all that. So wrapping this up, the biggest changes to the energy code for 2021 code cycle were the expansion of HVAC duct testing. We went from not needing it if all the ductwork was inside the building envelope to now we require duct testing for everything. If you have ductwork in your house, it has to be tested for leakage for a new build. The photo verified testing results being required rather than optional. The energy credit option changes, continuous exterior insulation, and the push towards some kind of calculated compliance path. There are 3 main components to help ensure compliance with the energy code. Outreach and education. This is the biggest thing. Teaching our general public, our designers, design professionals, and teaching our builders as well as helping our neighbors, their building departments learn how to apply the code. These are really big things. And we're already working on some of this. The Sustainability Commission has the influence with the council to push that idea of helping this outreach. This is where I believe the Sustainability Commission can really make the biggest difference. The second, plan review. So plans examiners are getting older, and we need to bring in newer plans examiners. We're just aging out, but we're still holding on to our older plans examiners because we just don't have people we can find. There's not a lot of certified plans examiners out there under 7 years old. So we've got youngsters. What's that? Youngsters. Yeah. Youngsters that have been looking at retiring for the last 5 years. But re-looking at this, considering energy code requirements could help streamline the process while reducing mistakes and missed requirements. So our plans examiners right now, they struggle with the design professionals because they don't know what they're doing half the time with energy code. And then inspections. We have the best inspection team I've ever worked with here. We have an actual team. We talk to each other. We have discussions in the morning about what we saw the previous day and how to deal with problems. Our inspection team is great. Other cities need to adopt what we do. They need to have teams that talk to each other. Most building departments, before we had a major change here, we have mostly new building inspectors. We had one of our building inspectors tell me when I showed up, it's amazing that you talk to me. No one said a word to me in the last year. And so having a good communication between your inspection team makes the largest difference. And we are the ambassadors to the community. We touch more people on a daily basis than any other department in the city. But we're the least recognized because we're never at City Hall. No one ever sees us, and when we are here,
I would disagree. You are actually the most fun person to run into in the break room in the morning.
So I really try to make it known that we do have building inspectors here. But yes, it's
Perhaps the most feared city employees behind maybe the police.
so I try really hard not to do that. People call me sir, and I say, please don't call me sir. Please call me Joey. I'm here to help you guys. So our job as inspectors, number one, we're a set of eyes, an extra set of eyes for the builders, for the people who know what they're doing. Second, we're teachers. We've been through this. We see more construction projects in a day than most builders see in a year. And then if all goes bad, we are enforcers, but that is the last resort. And I try to use that extremely sparingly, because being seen as an enforcement official makes my job harder. I find that being seen as part of the construction team on the site is a lot better benefit than being feared. And if I have customers here that fear me, I want to change that. I've run into some new contractors. I've gone in, I picked up the plans and held them upside down and said, oh, this doesn't look right at all. And, wait for them to turn the plans right side up and say, oh, that's much better. Just to try to diffuse the tension, because we're people. I make mistakes all the time. Making mistake isn't a problem. It's not owning up to your mistake. Not being able to say, hey, I was wrong. I've made bad calls, and I've gone back and said, I was wrong about this, and this is what it really is.
Thank you, Joe.
I have customers to where they said, oh, you don't need to show me the code, and I'll pull up the code. These are important things. And one thing I've taught every new inspector I've trained over the past 19 years is that never be afraid to say, I don't know, but always follow it up with, I'll get back to you by the end of the day.
Thank you, Joey.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Very good. Appreciate it.
I got a personal question.
Yes.
Hopefully it won't take too long. I have a 40-year-old house. And a number of years ago, we had Washington Energy Services come in and do a energy check, including that infrared imaging.
Mhm.
And we didn't do too bad, but then we spent a boatload of money to upgrade the house. But one of the things we did, all our ducting is not in the heated space, but it's wrapped with a couple of inches of insulation. Does that matter?
Yes. Duct sealing makes the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And then insulating your duct in that exterior environment is the second biggest thing. Your heating ductwork is the warmest part of your house. You take the warmest part of your house and you put it in the coldest environment, that makes for the largest heat exchange conditions. So yes, that insulation is very important, as well as the duct sealing they probably do as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for everything you do out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's appreciated. It just validated that my 100-year-old house is really inefficient.
Thank you
Thank you
both.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
All right, in the interest of time, because we did present the fleet electrification PowerPoint to council on Tuesday, we're gonna bump that agenda item. We can talk about electrification as part of the budget discussion. It will be part of council's budget discussion as well. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, please go back. I think it was about 25, maybe 30 minutes total, including the Q&A at the end with council. And you can usually speed up and watch that at 1.5 or 2 times speed. So please go ahead and review that, reach out to me with questions as normal, and we'll revisit that at a future.
Is there a
conversation.
2-minute synopsis of kind of how they took it and
Yes, so really quick synopsis, Makers did put together a phasing plan, so it looks like a lot of investment between now and 2030 in infrastructure at City Hall and the MOC to support the additional electric vehicles that they
Maintenance
recommended.
and Operations Center.
Maintenance and Operations Center, thank you, Rachel, to support the EVs that they're projecting we should purchase or recommending for purchase. And it does look like an increase in spending. It's about $700 per year, $700,000 yearly, over the $430,000 that we're typically spending on fleet. So that's between now and 2030. So that's not quite double, but getting up there. And then they also did an analysis of the public charging and the EV adoption rates in the city. So if you go back and view that presentation, kind of SparkNotes version of that is we have really high rates of EV ownership here in Sammamish compared to Seattle, compared to Washington, and compared to the nation. And we are also seeing a high number of home installations for EV chargers. So there is not demand out there right now for the city to be putting money towards additional public charging, given the capacity that we have and the amount of home installations that we're seeing. It's something staff will continue to monitor and will upgrade and install chargers as necessary, but at the moment, they did not identify an additional near-term demand.
I just want to add that, that any decision about investments is going to be made as a part of the budget process, because these decisions can't be made in a vacuum without looking at everything else. So that'll be where the actual decisions will be made.
So this was, part 2 was meant to inform recommendations for council during their budgeting process, and they ultimately will be making decisions.
So I get that. Was there any discussion about, for commercial development projects in the city as a requirement to have charging stations available?
That was not part of the scope of the study, but
It wasn't part of the scope of the study. We already do, we have a certain amount of EV ready requirements for commercial developments. One of the council members did suggest that we look at bumping that minimum up. San Francisco, did you all receive this email a couple of months ago, or did it just come to staff? About adopting the San Francisco EV charger model, which they have a higher threshold for multifamily. But frankly, if you read through the fine print, if it significantly affects the affordability of the unit, then it can be waived by the director. So it's a bit.
I have neighbors that drive down to Fred Meyer to charge their cars, and so I guess if it's electric, it doesn't affect our vehicle mile footprint probably, but it'd be nice if there was.
Actually, it does.
Okay,
Which is a
alright.
whole nother issue, but
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
But like at the town center, I'm assuming they're building all that into, as they build that commercial space out, that would be a
They're,
prime.
yeah,
that's
I
where I
think
was
it's
going, sorry, I wasn't clear.
20 to 25%. If I don't, if I'm wrong on that percentage, then I'm wrong, but it's something like that, that a minimum of the parking stalls have to have that amount of
Oh, nice.
EV. So in the new development going,
Okay, that's a
right,
large
like the
number.
multifamily, yeah. Well, by 2030, you're supposedly not gonna be able to buy a 2035.
I think it's 2035.
2035, you can't buy an ICE vehicle anymore, right?
What about hybrid?
You can, I think a plug-in hybrid still counts,
Okay.
but you can't do a fully light duty.
Yeah.
Right.
Better, Toyota just announced, I think it was last month, that they're kind of heading towards dropping full electric and going towards hybrid. They said that's the future. Outside of this, the kind of the hydrogen thing, but the hybrid cars where Toyota is saying that that's the future.
It's a problem because the Infrastructure Reduction Act hasn't caught up, and I'm sure you all have examples of people that have EVs that try to go on trips and they can't charge their cars across the state or the Northwest. And, well, I'm gonna get a hybrid because I can't travel with my EV, there aren't enough charging stations.
There's never gonna be a charging opportunity at my cabin in the middle of nowhere at the ocean, ever.
You just put that diesel generator in and.
Yeah.
So, no worries. I highly encourage you all to watch that. It was a really, I think, great presentation. And there was also a very comprehensive council Q&A that was attached to our agenda for this meeting that was also provided to council. So some of the questions that we've brought up were also asked by council, so it might be worth taking a look at that as well. Next agenda item, the Sustainable Sammamish Guide. So I am just about wrapped up with the first draft of all of the content for the Sustainable Sammamish Guide, and I will be sending that out to you all early next week. To stay in alignment with the Open Public Meetings Act, what I will be doing is emailing each of you an individual copy of that draft. I hope that you are all aware how to use track changes in Word. If you're not, I'm happy to set up a one-on-one meeting with you to go through that. But if you could go through the document content, track changes as necessary to make suggestions, add comments. I've really tried to make it as polished as possible, so there shouldn't be, it's really high-level content, messaging. If you feel that an action or a key messaging point should be taken out, please indicate that. If there's something that you think is missing, you can absolutely indicate that as well. And I'll be sending some detailed instructions with that email. Please respond with your document with the track changes, and then I will compile all of that information and make everyone's comments available to the commission as a whole at a future meeting. Hoping to have all of that wrapped up by the July 11th meeting, but that meeting is also when we're going to be discussing budget with the city manager. So that is going to take precedence. And if we need to push out the Sustainable Sammamish Guide, we'll do that over email or look at it for September. But we're really hoping to have it done before then. There'll be a pretty quick turnaround time for that review, just to make sure that we're keeping everything on schedule. So it'll be about 2 weeks maximum that you'll have for that review. So please just keep that in the back of your mind. The sooner you get it to me, the sooner we can have that next draft and then have it ready for print. Any questions on that process?
Would we expect an email?
Early next week, hoping for Monday.
So just a process question. So you
Yeah.
can't post that on an online, like to the cloud,
Like SharePoint or Google
Where-
Docs.
even on the city site,
If
and then we all just log in and you can see who made comments? Or is that, you're saying that if we're all on the same document, that's
there's a risk of folks responding to each other's comments and then it's everyone collaborating on the same document, the same way we can't have back and forth on email, it kind of falls into that category.
It's a
So,
risk reduction issue.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's us covering our
It
bases.
sucks for you.
Yeah, it's a little bit more admin work on my end.
Certainly does.
Pam, I want to make sure, was that clear online as well?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Perfect, absolutely. Great, and then the last thing I've got for everyone today is a farmer's market sign up. We have tabled on May 22nd was our first farmer's market tabling event. I think it went pretty well. Steve, you stopped by and helped me table for the first part of it. Brian, I know you stopped by later in the day. Apologies for packing up a little bit early with the pollinator crew, but I appreciate you stopping by. And I would love to have all of you there. Maybe Steve, if you could share a little bit about what that experience was like, or Nick, you really helped out at Earth Day, just plugging these events. It's really great to talk with residents, and it's always nice to have another person there.
Well,
So-
that wheel is a magnet for the kids, and hopefully they drag mom and dad over. And once the question's asked, there's, for your information, there's a, like a,
Sustainability wheel.
yeah, that you spin, and then there's pins and then a question that has something to do with climate action.
My favorite question was, this geared towards children, what can you do to help the planet, right? And this one kid thought about, and his mother's right there, goes, I could probably sweep the floor in my room. And she's like, well, I don't have to help the planet, but that's a great idea.
So at the farmers markets, we're a little bit less pit oriented. Earth Day is a pretty pit heavy event. Obviously, as a commissioner, your time is voluntary. So if you're not available for any of these dates, we understand, but I just wanted to have a little bit more of a formal process so I know who to expect when. And if you are able to help out, we always appreciate it. I do want to give a special plug for August 7th is a sustainable Sammamish farmers market. So the entire farmers market is going to be sustainability themed and sustainability focused. We have some special booths coming. We're going to be launching and promoting our joining of the Energy Smart East Side campaign, which is coming on July 1st. So we'll have a little bit more information coming once that's official in July, just in time for that August farmers market.
What day was that? August what?
August 7th. Yeah, so that's the big one. If you can't do anything else, we would love to have you there. Great photo op, a lot of networking and learning opportunities with that market as well.
And you're not asking for, you'd be happy if all of us showed up to each of them.
Be happy, but it'd be
Okay.
great to have at least one or two for each of these. Pam, I can email you and we can figure out if any of these work for you separately.
And we'll email everybody, because everybody may not know their schedule right
Yeah,
today.
this was also provided as an agenda attachment, so that'll be the post-meeting follow-up.
It's easier to pressure people when you're in person.
I know, great job. But I'm also doing the opposite of that. It's like, you're not gonna get out of it just, well, I don't really know what my August 7th schedule is. We'll
Rose,
follow
did you
you.
have more? I have a question about the agenda for the year.
Yeah.
So we only have one more meeting and then we don't get back together till September. And I noticed on the schedule, we have kind of a year-end wrap-up in December. Have we considered perhaps a more of a retreat format for the December meeting? We get very little opportunity to think strategically amongst ourselves. There's a lot of topics we probably want to talk about. We have to be sensitive to the Open Public Meetings Act. So maybe just something we have to think about is, is there interest in that? Do we want to have a commission retreat in December? Maybe it's like a half day or something instead of our traditional meeting. Just kind of toss that out there.
Yeah.
I'll toss out something else. Puget Sound Energy does tours of their solar and wind farm over at Redgrass Summits Vantage.
Just drove by it today. Yeah.
You can, I don't think you even have to sign up, but sometime between April and October.
That'd be great.
They have tours every day. So you wanna go on a
I don't
field
think we
trip?
wanna go in December, but maybe.
Well, I don't think they do it,
Yeah.
Now,
These are great suggestions, heard, we'll circle back on each of these
and we
items.
can, so if one of the commissioners wanted to have a barbecue, we can all get together and have barbecue. We can talk about the environment, we can talk about national things. We just can't talk about city of Sammamish sustainability, anything.
I believe that is correct,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
That's a meeting. That would be
It's a
considered
slip,
meeting.
I just would like to say it is a slippery slope, so
Yeah.
please use your best judgment. Feel free to read back through those resources I've sent about open public meetings and what that looks like. But we absolutely encourage relationship building. You know, we're all spending a couple hours every month, but there's a lot more we can learn about each other. And Rachel and I have really enjoyed meeting with each of you one-on-one to kind of get to know you over coffee. We're absolutely open to continue doing that. And we appreciate how well all of you have been working together so far, so. Oh.
The staff responded to one of the questions on electrification. I had asked about permit fees, and the permit fees are the same, $134 for replacing an electric or a gas furnace. So I've got a proposal, discussion item to talk about. We don't have a lot of time, so it's not very long. You just pass it on. And I'll read out loud, Pam, so you can hear it.
And Paul, just for the future, this would be great to bring up at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, it's a
Or in
QA
advance.
matrix. I thought it was associated with the QA matrix.
Okay.
That's what I thought it
Okay,
was.
understood.
So I'll just read out loud, Pam. I didn't plan on it, but because you're not able to see it, I thought I would. So the staff's provided information. There's a $134 permit fee for each city resident that replaces their furnace. The fee's the same whether it's gas furnace or electric furnace. So given the goals of the climate action plan, I suggest, I didn't write it this way, the commission believes a change in permit fees would provide better incentives to replace furnaces with electric rather than gas furnaces. So I propose a motion. The city of the Sammamish Sustainability Commission directs the staff to study and make a recommendation for a change in permit fees when furnaces are replaced. The difference should be at least $200 in favor of an electric furnace replacement. This recommendation should be provided to the commission within the next 30 days. The Sustainability Commission will discuss the staff's recommendation and then agree on a change in rates to recommend to the Sammamish City Council.
So respectfully, the Sustainability Commission does not have the ability to direct staff work. So that is something that we have to figure out as a commission, right, and how we work together, right? But the city manager is the individual who directs staff work in the city. So, and that is how the form of government works. Commissions are an advisory body, right, that provide information that staff helps set the agenda with the commission's input, right? But sets the agenda, and then this is the information we're looking for to move forward. So I think that we could have a conversation about putting an agenda item on what we could potentially do in terms of incentivizing with or mandating via fees or that sort of thing. But the commission does not have the ability to direct staff.
Or could David make a recommendation to the city council to consider Paul's proposal?
Public comment. The city.
Well, I mean, I can do that anytime, but I wondered if the commissioners are aligned on this matter and that we could do it cohesively. I mean, I can always as an individual do it, but
Well,
I'm
yeah,
looking for the
I think
commissioners
it
to.
makes.
It's
no brainer sense.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
but
if
there's
we can
a-
agree on
yeah.
something as a commission, I think it has more weight.
But respectfully, we have a work plan that we're currently working under that you don't have the ability to tell us to add to it.
That's fine. So the commissioners, you're saying we can't ask you to look into this. I'm a little bit surprised that you're responding in that way, but we can still as a commission agree that we think there should be an increase. And if you all agree, then we propose that to the city council as a commission.
So what I'm hearing, and I might be misinterpreting, but it sounds like you are wanting the commission to make a recommendation to council to direct staff, to work with the city manager to direct staff to look into the permit fees.
It's not look in, it's, what I'm saying is I think the commissioners,
Because
I'm asking for the commissioners input, not just the staff, to say, do we agree that we should have a higher rate for a permit for a furnace replaced with gas versus electricity?
so that would be the recommendation.
And so,
Yeah, I would agree that it should cost more to put gas furnace in, replace it versus a heat pump. Now, with regards to how much more, I would leave that up to, because $134 sounds like somebody's doing it, figuring out how long it takes to do the permit and is doing an hourly rate. So you might want to.
that's the city's number, that's not mine.
There might be some thought behind that, but maybe, excuse me, maybe the fee is the same, but maybe you get a rebate or something like that.
Yeah, I like the concept. I think $200 with just this information is random. And should have some data to back that up, right? So what, should it be 200? Should it be 250? Should it be 150? What is that number? And what is the data that kind of says, hey, here's what that looks like. Here's what we're spending today. And here's what it would look like.
But shouldn't the city come up with a number?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I wanted
Yes.
to
So
help.
that
but-
is the
but they're
issue.
not. But-
Well,
That is,
I don't know that we actually can have a separate, so to step back, I don't know that we have to understand what legally the city can and can't do in terms of whether or not we could have a separate fee. I don't know the answer to that. So there would be work involved in figuring all of that out to begin with as well. So, which is why I was saying, if we looked at, okay, if we wanted an agenda item, right, for the commission on what the potential levers are that the city has in terms of the carrots and the sticks, that's where the commission can say, hey, this is the conversation we want to have, and then staff can go and figure out when in the agenda that works, and then bring that, because we have to start with what legally can we do, and I don't know the answer.
How do we do that second bit? Because that was something we talked about in our one-on-one. In our tool set here and what is not. How do we make that agenda item happen?
So like the mandating the heat pump versus.
No, like you said we like go back and see what our carrots and sticks are. Like have an agenda item that says this is what the city can do, this is what the city can't do. And
I think we
give a
can,
briefing
right.
to us on that, so when we have ideas like this, we know it's not staff saying that, it's like
Sure.
but it's you literally
That
cannot
might be a
do
good
that
discussion
because
for
it's
July.
against the law.
I don't know if we'll have enough information by July, because that's gonna be, it's gonna take some work. So
Yeah.
let's go look at that and see when it would fit in.
That would be great, because I think
So, but
that's
I,
a missing piece to a lot of
yeah,
what some of us might feel on this commission.
I'm not sure there's ever gonna be a comprehensive list that we could give you of that, because
Fine.
you guys are, part of why you're here is to come up with these creative ideas, and unfortunately, sometimes we have to say, well, state law won't allow us to do
Maybe to
that.
expand on Tim's question, the city could tell us in instances where the commission recommends a change in rate in favor of sustainability, what's the process in the city to change a particular permit fee or rate or something like that? I think the broader issue is we're trying to understand like what's the leverage point to encourage more sustainability, whether it's in appliances or other things. And what limitations does the city have to perhaps charge more for a sustainable process?
And Paul, this seems a little, not in a bad way, but just random. Because there's a bunch of stuff that we could probably come up with around helping drive behavior on residents' part. This is one of a ton of things. Is this just your first lob into, hey, if we have ideas, how do we get that over to the city council to make recommendations? Or was this your number one item?
I just think that we talk a lot on this commission. And I think we can do things, and I think you guys are really smart, and I think you have a lot to contribute. And I think it can make a difference in sustainability. And it's great to get input and learn things, but I think we can do things too.
But, okay, in a normal setting, outside of kind of what we're forced into here, this would have been one item, say we all got together, did a session, whiteboarded and came up with our top 3 or 4 things that we all thought, and this was one of those things, right? So it's very difficult because we don't know what each of us thinks because we haven't been able to communicate outside of these meetings. And so this is, again, I think this is one thing that if we can put our heads together as a sustainability commission and come up with a list.
I think it's yes and.
Yeah.
I guess I just see it differently. I think it's yes and. I think we see things as we learn things, like this session was a learning thing. So I think it's yes and for each of us to say, well, I thought this, but now and I think this. And so I think we're learning. And so I think each time we learn, it creates opportunities for action for the commission, which I'm not sure what actionability we actually have. But that's one, and I think and today, I heard some more things I didn't know that I think can help. So I don't know that, I think the list keeps changing and being additive as we learn more as a commission, and we think we can add things, but I do think action is what we need to do, and it seems that we don't.
I would just be, and again, I love the idea. I love that whole focus on action. I'm just concerned that if our first recommendation out of this to the, again, worried is the wrong thing. Our first recommendation out of this commission is raising this rates, which they may or may not be able to do. Is that our number one priority to get in front of the commission?
Well, I guess I would say, David, why not say in the next meeting, we'll do another recommendation to the city council. It seems like there's so many for us to do. The climate action plan shows so many different levers that really the climate action plan presents to us as a commission that could be used to help drive the city forward. So I think it's how can why not do more? Why would it be just 1, 2, or 3? That's what I think.
It sounds to me like the discussion isn't about what to do. Obviously you want to incentivize people to do heat pumps, not gas furnaces, but how to get them to do it. And do you do it with rebates, or is there some other vehicle out there that we haven't hit upon yet?
But that's not for us to decide. It's to make a recommendation to encourage more sustainable practices in residences, right? And that example, but I think the how-to part is what the city staff figures out. At least that's my understanding of our function, right, as an advisory board.
Yeah, but I don't see that we've got, that we're prohibited from suggesting things to them like this.
They'll tell us what our swim lanes are.
Yeah. So if you don't ask the question, they can't say no.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of hitting it. I don't know if year end is the right timing, but as David said, there might be lots of other things that could be actionable. We just haven't had an opportunity to discuss those amongst ourselves.
And I would like to make a quick plug. There's a lot happening behind the scenes that US commissioners are not privy to, but some really tangible items that we have heard and we've acted on. Hopefully you've seen in your most recent newsletters, we've got Sustainable Sammamish is that first page right there. In every single newsletter, we're adding a new edition and new information for residents, building up to the Sustainable Sammamish Guide. I work with our regional partners. We're working on getting added to this Energy Smart East Side incentive and rebate campaign. And there's a lot happening behind the scenes that does make a difference. And so we're looking to you all for what are those additional recommendations and how do we change those hearts and minds in the most effective way, making the best use of city resources and taxpayer money. And Paul, to your point about action, I really encourage you all to come to the Sammamish Farmers Market, come to our events. That is a very clear, tangible action that each of you can take as a commissioner to come and speak with people, to educate firsthand, and to really put some skin in the game of what it looks like to talk to residents and what's important to them. Is that water conservation? Is that waste reduction? Is that learning as much as possible as they can about a heat pump and who to go to and how to get the best bang for their buck? So I recognize it can be frustrating at times that we're not able to mandate or just throw
By the way,
money. to
I
these
didn't say
things.
mandate. I'm not talking about mandating. I'm just talking about altering incentives and
Yes,
recommending
yeah.
that to the city council. It's not, I didn't say.
Yeah, I think that was pulled from previous conversations we've had as well. Yeah, and I think the clear thing to note here is making recommendations and not direction. It's, I think, an important distinction to
Well,
make.
David's our conduit to the city council, right? So you provide recommendations from this group.
Well, the recommendations actually go to the city manager, right? Recommendations go to the city manager, and then the city manager is the one who makes recommendations to the council. So
Okay.
Scott is gonna be here at our July meeting when we start talking about budget, because, you know, the EV stuff is a big thing that we are looking for your thoughts about, right? Should we be recommending that we spend 1.4 million in this next biennium, right? For charging infrastructure and to start doing that, right? I know some of the discussion we had last month was, well, is that the best use of the one? And unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to be in a position to say, ta-da, this is the best use, right? But those are the kind of things that we're bringing to you all, that the city council is gonna ask when we go through the budget process, right? What does the Sustainability Commission think about this, right? Because it is a large commitment of funds, right? Not just for the biennium, but then for the coming effort, right? So that's a very tangible thing that question is gonna be asked specifically about what does this commission recommend?
I thought in the bylaws, to your point, that we did have a direct link to the city council where the chairman, if there's ideas from the Sustainability Commission, the chairman doesn't want to present those to the city council. Did I read that wrong in the bylaws?
I
think you present them, but
Yeah.
again,
ultimately, the city manager does have say over what is presented
Sure.
and brought to
Right,
council,
but
but you
yes.
would be the
Yes.
conduit
So
for
if-
that,
if
so.
we have an idea that we want to present to the council. We had to get approval from the city manager of whether that's a good use of their time or the agenda.
If
because
they
there's
have
a
room in
100
there,
other
yeah.
agendas going on.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
But, so I have a question about going, I mean, every Tuesday, not every Tuesday, but at least 3 of them a month, you can go get public comment.
absolutely.
Can you stand up there as a member of the Sustainability Commission? Because they're all gonna recognize you anyway. There aren't that many of us, and they all voted on us.
You can speak as an,
And present, here's what I think you ought to do with heat pumps versus gas
I mean,
furnaces.
you can't represent the commission and that. You can do it as a private citizen, right? But
yeah, so you can say, my name is Steve, I live in
Okay.
Sammamish, I serve on the Sustainability Commission, these are my thoughts. You can't say the commission feels and the commission wants.
Yeah, gotcha. I
That's what
understand
David
that.
gets to do.
That's what David gets
Yeah.
to.
But not even in public comment, I'm assuming that I would have to go through the formal channels and present formally.
To represent the Sustainability Commission, yes.
Yes, and, right, I mean, I think that this is a good conversation to continue to have with the city manager, right? As, look, all new commissions go through this is all, right? You know, what is our role, right? Advisory commissions, they're difficult because they're not as, you know, you aren't going, we're gonna do this, and this, and it's just not the way that they're set up, right? So I think with Scott here next month, we can talk more about that. And as well as sort of the budget, and Rose can sort of look at what we're thinking. And then that is gonna be a place where we're gonna be asking you about, should we put that money in the CIP or not, right? Which, so that's the, sorry, I'm using government speak, that's the capital improvement plan, right? And as we look at all of the different responsibilities we have, is, you know, is that the right, or should we do it, but maybe lower it a little bit, because we still have all of these known unknowns, costs on the utility side upgrade, right? So more to come, but if I could suggest we have more of that role of the commission with the city manager.
But we talked about having a meeting to understand the long range business planning process, right? So there may be other ideas that won't get funded in the next funding period, but this commission feels important for the city to consider, and because we need to understand that a little bit more, like what is the available budget for sustainability improvements, and what's the funding cycle, and how do we provide input? I don't know that we've had.
And that's some of the discussion that we'll have in July,
Okay.
right? Because we're building the budget, we're starting to build the budget for the next biennium. It'll go to council in November, right? But there's never gonna be enough money for sustainability, just like there's never enough money for transportation,
Sure.
right? So, and then all of these things competing against each other at the end of the day, right? So parks, transportation, city facilities, sustainability, all of that kind of stuff. So no one's ever gonna be able to say there's X amount of money available for sustainability, right? There's gonna be we're gonna recommend this level. Does that make sense?
There's no plan. I mean, there's not a 5-year plan for.
Well, that's what we're working through right now. And that's up through
okay.
the capital improvement program. The city has not had a one-stop capital improvement program. And so that is, most jurisdictions have a 6-year where you can look at everything. There's different funds, right? Some are restricted, some are not. But usually there's one document where you can see all of the capital responsibilities over a 6-year period, because that gives you that long-term planning ability, right?
Yep.
And you have to make sure that you can fund them. So we're literally pulling that together. The transportation improvement program and the surface water program they have an annual thing that has to be adopted. That's happening right now. But so you can get some window into those two programs right now. But it's really gonna come in the fall.
What happens if our recommendation is there should be I believe there should be a separate sustainability budget line item that, because there's gotta be state and federal money that we're going after that should be allocated specifically to sustainability and not have to siphon off of other programs all the time. Like there should be a line item in there for sustainable where we could allocate, or the city manager, city council could allocate dollars out of that specific line item to some of these sustainability programs.
So we do have a sustainability line item in the city manager's office, but that's really just for ongoing work like Rose is doing, not necessarily for capital stuff. It is
tied
something
into
that,
construction and engineering budgets.
no, it's more tied into like, we're gonna have to print the sustainable Sammamish guide, or we have to hire a consultant to do the right-of-way tree study, right? It's not about capital dollars though, but that is something that we've been talking about, pulling together a climate CIP. But I wanna be really clear, those dollars are gonna be general fund dollars that are gonna be, that every other program in the city basically is looking to get. And the city needs to continue to have good roads and safe parks and,
Sure.
all of that kind of stuff. So we would have line items for those grants and things like that. And we are actively seeking them. One of the things that Rose has been doing is working on getting a grant that they would go into provide income qualified heat pump conversions for folks, right? But I also want to be really clear, a lot of that climate money has an equity lens that Sammamish is gonna not be all that competitive for. So I just want to level set on some of that stuff as well. So.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, it's helpful.
I know
It's a great
I'm not
conversation.
making friends, but this is our reality.
And again, I'm just thinking when we're making recommendations to the city council and they're up for another vote, right? And they're, saying, hey, here's what it looked like when we came into office. And here's what we've done specifically about sustainability. We actually have carved out, capital improvement money that we can allocate to these things. Might be a good thing to have, right? Where we're not, because otherwise, to your point, any of that stuff, we're going to be fighting for general funds, right? And that's always, sustainability is probably going to be the, because there's safety, there's some of these other things that are going to take that general fund money ahead.
I disagree. It's in the messaging and the business case, right? And if the community values the climate action plan, then it'll be a priority, right? Obviously, it's balanced.
I'm talking about from an operations perspective. You're, you know, that general fund is, right, everything has to operate fine.
Right.
And, you know, she was saying everybody's wants a piece of that pie. And if you don't have a separate carved out sustainability capital improvement project budget that you can then allocate that nobody else can touch.
Well, the Pine Lake solar panel project must have been part of that, right? I didn't know about.
That wasn't
It's a
ours.
PSE.
It was
Oh, it's
it's a
PSE.
PSC program, yeah.
Okay.
So
Huh.
all of this is really good.
Anyway,
No, well, I just also wanna say that anytime we add, if we're gonna say we want a $2 million a year allocation, I'll just pick a number, random number, right? That's not sustainable over time unless we have new revenue. I just wanna be really clear about that. And new revenue means new taxes, right? So when we have these discussions, right, we gotta remember that, you know, all of these things compound. And it becomes, maybe we could do something this year, right? But then when we start looking at the out years, if all that's, or, and because the other side of new revenue is, or we don't do it, we get out of other lines of business. Right, because we don't, the revenues do not, the increase in revenues do not keep pace with the increase in expenses that any municipal government has. So it's,
yeah,
It's you, so you've got several people here from private industry that think about this differently. It's like, how can you generate income from sustainability? You know, and I don't know if you're working on that at Amazon. You're at Amazon, right?
Correct.
But again, that's a brainstorming session we could have. Is there an opportunity, perhaps some ideas we generate could potentially generate income for the city? But it might require an investment up front, and I think that's where the funding of the general funds dollar comes into play.
I know that the city would love any ideas on how to generate additional revenue.
I'm not saying I have any right now.
No, I understand,
We
I
can think
understand.
about
Think
it.
on it,
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
right. So,
well, you even, there's no money even for us, you know, to have a separate, we found this out like first or second meeting. There's no budget for us to have a working, you know, a half day working session. Because that takes, you know, IT, because it has to be open forum.
Right.
It takes, and so, you know, ideally, we would all get together and do a, maybe not a half day, but, you know, 2 or 3 hour session. Going through all this stuff and making recommendations, right? Hey, what goes in the parking lot and what goes up, what do we want to put up in front of the city council to kind of make our recommendations, or what do we want to work on next, right? That's a working session that there's no budget for.
but we can do that once a year, we just can't do that monthly, right? To Nick's point
Yes.
about maybe doing and maybe the focus for, whether it's December or January, is mapping out ideas that the commission have, again, not to this level of specificity, but the higher level staff, let's have an agenda item that talks about what are the carrots and what are the sticks that the city could potentially legally do,
Yeah.
right? And then having that as agenda item. That's the kind of stuff that we can go back and then we can craft that, we can figure out how that fits into the calendar with all of our other work plan items, right? Those are things that we can absolutely be responsive to. I don't want this group to feel like we're always saying no. So, but we just have to find that sweet spot, and
So-
we're still working through it together.
Just one other question. So the city goes to electrification, right? And it's gonna cost money to set up the infrastructure. But then the city's gonna pay a lot less money in gasoline and diesel for your equipment, right? So where does that savings get captured? Can that be channeled to a different program?
There's not gonna be savings. I wanna be about, if we go to electric EVs, there's not gonna be savings. We spend $100,000 on gas, I think, a year. It's not a very big number at the end of the day.
Okay.
When you add in the capital costs, then plus the electrical, the increase there, I just want to be really clear.
But those are the kind of things you
Exactly.
can talk about. Hey,
Right.
if we're going to do something more sustainable, is the city realizing cost savings in something else? And could
Right.
that money be applied into some of these ideas that we're
Right.
trying to generate?
And that's the trick is,
Yeah.
at least from what we've looked at from some of these things, right? We don't have that yet. We haven't found them yet.
I think the whole point here, and kind of, Paul, you started here, that there's a lot of smart people that I don't think are getting fully utilized. I mean, we're volunteering our time, right? So is it important enough to the city to carve out, again, a 4-hour offsite session where we can put our heads together? Because we're putting our time and skin in the game. Is the city willing or able to do the same thing? Because I really feel like, it would help put together a full action item list of what we want to go after, even for, again, December might be perfect, because then we could build our whole agenda for 2025 of what do we want to talk about in these coming meetings that are coming up.
Right, and then also how does that align with the city adopted work plan, right? Which may have some other priorities as well that we need to, that are sustainability focused, that we also have the responsibility to work on too, right?
Yeah. No easy answer.
No, there's no easy answer.
But again, we're all kind of hitting our heads against the wall a little bit because we're passionate about this, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do more, do it sooner, and so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, but the first step was really to review all the command media, the climate action plan, the urban enforcement. You wanted input from us on all this, right? And I think that's really the first gate we were trying to go through as a board. And we may be at a point where we're looking at what's the next phase that we're going to be working through.
Yeah, but we want to make a difference, right? We don't want to talk about making a difference. We actually want to help make a difference. And when and how do we advise the city council? And then, learning that process, and then making sure that what we're putting in front of them is the most important things that we think that the city should be looking at and focused on.
Yeah, that lens, exactly what are the most important things, what should we be focused on, and what moves the needle? That is the lens that I encourage you all to think about as you're reviewing the Sustainable Sammamish Guide content, because we've all talked about our residents and the residential sector being a huge contributor to our greenhouse gas emissions. So what in the Sustainable Sammamish Guide is the most important, and how do we make that messaging as powerful as possible? And then how do we get that guide into people's hearts and minds? They're not just reading it and not doing anything. We need to motivate that change and encourage people and inspire people to make those behavioral changes. So just something to think about as you're reviewing this.
I have a garden at home, and every year we rent mason bees. And with the mason bees comes a 8.5 by 11 laminated. You don't have to do it, but kind of like a poster session. If you went to a technical conference, only it's reduced down to this size. All about mason bees. Well, what if we made up some of those on heat pumps and other things, EVs, you name it, and we had those that we could at the farmer's market, and we could walk around like a bunch of circus shills, passing them out and starting conversations.
Yeah, I mean, those two heat pump, that's what we had at the last farmer's market to get people to start asking questions, show people exactly what even is a heat pump and why is it better for the environment. So yeah, I think, those newsletter pages each month are a great start. We can always do more, and we're looking to you for recommendations on what else we can do. So
what I'd like to see though on the chart would be, if you get a heat pump, yeah, it's gonna cost more up front, but these are the savings you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And your payback period is, I don't know, X number of years, long before end of life for the piece of equipment.
yeah, it's a good suggestion.
Show me the money.
They don't usually motivate you.
Yeah.
But as we found at Earth Day, you've got about 5 to 10 seconds to really get somebody engaged before they either walk away or lose attention. And
Well, that's why I think you have the booth.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of walk around. I'm reminded last summer we had a booth, only it was staffed by people like on this community advisory group. One of the kids was Manute, I can't remember his last name. He was a Eastlake Junior. And talk about a hustler. This guy was great. He walked all over that market and just was sending people to the booth. You ready for that?
Yeah.
All right,
Rose and Rachel wanna go home.
so I think that's it. Just any other calendar items we need to go over?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Budget will be a big discussion at the next meeting. We can absolutely continue this conversation.
Well,
Thank
let's
you
go through
all
that.
for expressing, your needs and wants and continuing these conversations.
All right, thank you. So we're adjourned.
All right.
Call for adjournment.
All-
Out for adjournment.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks for hanging in there, Pam.
Yep, see you next time. Bye.